Welcome back to Snap Academy. I really appreciate you guys coming and listening to us. We are finally back. We're a little off on our scheduling, but you know, we're here now. So I am your host, Sterling.
That's right. And once again, I'm your co-host AJ, broadcasting live multiverse wide. Yeah, I had a little bit of medical hiccup there, so that's why we're a little bit behind with our recording. But it gave me some time to climb back to level 40. Not quite back to level 50 yet. Sterling, how's your Marvel Snap week been going?
No, I've definitely been enjoying it. My schedule has changed too. I'm working nights, so like it actually gives me a little bit more time to play because with kids at school in the day, I don't have a whole lot to do, so I can actually sit down for a couple hours and do some stuff. So, and I've been playing, posted that video of Cerebro at 2 power, and that's been interesting and fun to play. It's not super powerful, but it is a fun deck.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. It seems like it can be kind of hit or miss based on the locations, which we'll be getting to later in the episode. But have you been affected by the balance changes at all with your decks?
No, I mean, yes and no. Obviously, Nakia definitely came out of a lot of decks, but I didn't find her to be broken in some of those decks. She was just a good card to put in almost every deck. Which is why I think she needed that nerf. She definitely was getting to that point of, back in the beginning of Nova Carnage being everywhere. Now Okoye and Nakia was being seen in almost every deck. So
Yeah, we can start with Nakia. So she's still a 3/1. What has changed is her on reveal. Instead of giving every card in your hand plus 2 power, she gives 2 cards in your hand plus 2 power. I can read the developer comment. It says Nakia had the potential to give massive amounts of power that players could reliably play out by using low-cost cards. We're nerfing the number of cards she will be buffing in order to keep this ability in check. So I feel that what my addition to that would be is that I really just feel like Nakia just went into any deck without. There are very few decks that didn't want Nakia.
right.
I I wish I wish that the nerf would have been just +1 power to all cards in your hand. Um,
Yeah,
but
see, I
yeah,
I think they definitely could have gone a few different ways. I feel they just went with the safest route. It may have been a little too much, but I also think that they're going to come back and look at her again because we saw Okoye change a couple different times. So I don't think the developers are too scared to change cards. They're too scared to change them and make them broken though, and they'd rather go, I think, the safe route and have them be not as good. That way they can kind of adjust from there.
yeah, right. Twist the knob back the other way. That's a good point. I really felt that, but this is a good nerf though. I the card was just way too ubiquitous. It went in almost everything, and it just did a lot. And like you were comparing it to old school Nova Carnage, and it kind of was basically the same effect, except the cards that are getting the buff aren't on the battlefield; they're in your hand.
Yeah.
So it needed to happen.
Yeah,
We
and there
can,
was very
yeah.
few ways to actually counter that. I think the best way was Scorpion, and even then they're still getting a pretty big upside. So
Yeah, and then there's also the certain to touch on locations. When you would play her, any location came up where you're doubling her effect early in the game, and when your opponent does that, it's almost an auto concede.
yeah.
To go back to our snap conversation, which I have been snapping smarter these days, and it is like pretty gratifying to bust out some 4-win games and an 8-win game, and then someone's got your number and you just concede, give them 1 cube. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was sweet. It feels
No, there's
good.
definitely there's definitely many times where I will retreat like 6 games in a row because either you're playing stuff that I'm just like I'm not set up to beat that, or locations or whatever, but then by that seventh eighth game I'm gaining 4 and 8 cubes, so
Yeah,
it
yeah. So
ends
I've
up
been
working
I've been
out
trying
well.
to I've been trying to apply the Snap Academy fundamentals here. But yeah, so ultimately, glad to see Nakia get a nerf. So I can go through some of the other ones. The
Yeah.
collector had a huge nerf. It became a 2-1. It was a 2-0 originally, right?
Yes.
Um, and its ability is now when a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck, +1 power instead of +2. So I'll read the developer comment. The collector's ability to gain power rapidly in many decks is a bit too out of control, especially at his cost. We are reining him in with an adjustment to his power gain potential. I feel like collector is just, he's not even the same card. He's just totally, completely destroyed and annihilated by this nerf. What do you think?
I wouldn't go as far as saying that he's completely annihilated. I think I don't know how they could have actually reined him in any better, but he definitely was. I mean, most games I played collector, it was no problem getting him to 12 power or higher. Um, and for a two cost card, that's super powerful.
That's a good point. With no change to his cost, reducing his power that much makes sense. Because something like Devil Dinosaur, the ongoing ability stayed the same, and the cost went up
Right.
to account for how much power that you're getting for the energy you're spending. So when you put it in that frame, it makes sense to me. I still think it's a little bit weak. Maybe if it was a 2-2, I think that'd be cool. But I feel like that would go against the flavor of the collector, because collector's
Right.
just kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, he's just like a dude, and he
Exactly.
collects.
No, and honestly, in a lot of games that I'd play collector in, he the extra power was almost like too much. There'd be times that, he would just completely, control the lane just because of how much power he had, but it was almost too much. Like I would have preferred the power going, other places or whatnot. So I don't know. I haven't played with him a whole lot with this change, so I can't really say if it was great or bad, but it doesn't feel horrible.
I've only played against him a few times, and it felt like it might have felt horrible for the opponent. But I feel like maybe there's just more to be done with that deck, because you're playing with the collect. And it's good that we're kind of talking a little bit more about these cards, because in our deck archetype episode, we actually forgot to mention this. So it's good to touch on it a little bit more. I feel like with this collector Devil Dinosaur deck, um, it's kind of like you're playing it reminds me of the ongoing deck, and that you're playing a bunch of kind of junky cards like Cable and what's her face, Agent 13.
Right. Yep.
um
White
and,
Queen.
yeah, right, you're playing all these cards, and Sentinel. You're playing all these cards that are just kind of like, I mean, Cable, I think Cable is kind of cool because it can disrupt things if you're playing against a deck that, is hoping to draw everything in their deck. But I don't know. I just feel like you're not getting a lot of power out of the junky cards. Um, but that compensates for having something as powerful as Devil Dinosaur and Collector. I just feel like this kind of really hurts that deck a lot.
Yes. Again, I haven't. That used to be one of the decks I played all the time, but now that I'm getting deeper into Pool 3 and doing like Cerebro stuff, I really haven't touched on Collector in a while. So, uh, but yeah, I could see how those cards probably don't feel as good anymore.
Yeah, speaking of decks and cards that don't feel as good anymore, um, I feel like let's start with Hell Cow, and then we'll get to Colleen Wing, to who kind of like, I feel like Colleen Wing was updated as like a response to Hell Cow. So Hell Cow was originally a 2/6. Now it's become a 4/6. And its ability is still the same, is that when you play it, you discard 2 cards. I'll read the developer comment. Um, Hellcow is clearly a very strong card, so as we considered what direction to take her, we decided to adjust the curve of discard effects and how we cost them. Discarding 2 is now clearly a beneficial effect, so we have moved Hellcow's discard multiple effect up to 4 cost to nerf her. We're also subsequently buffing Swordmaster and Colleen Wing, who we'll talk about in a minute, to 3 and 2 cost respectively to maintain our curve. So really this has been like a holistic change to the discard deck. And it's interesting that they mentioned the discard multiple and how they move that up to 4 cost. So in the future, when we see cards that are asking anyone to discard multiple cards, it's not going to be costed less than 4, I think, unless they're really trying to push it. So anyway, this deck, the discard deck is really strong. Speaking also of pool 3 cards, what is your opinion on this Hellcow nerf?
I think it's amazing. Like Hellcow for what he did. I mean, like they said, it was very obvious that discarding 2 cards is a benefit, not a downfall. It is something you want to be doing because you're probably going to play a Hella on turn 6. So
Yes.
um yeah, and that's great to see, like, the evolution of the game too, in this aspect that they did not realize, and I don't think anybody truly realized how powerful discard was going to be until they started playing it and playing around with stuff. And yeah, that was, and it still is a really solid deck. But
There's just a
I
lot of
think,
synergy.
yeah, no, it all worked well together. I don't see it near as much anymore now, though.
Okay. Do you think it's because of the nerfs or
I
the
think so. I
nerf?
think for the most part, I mean, I still see it every once in a while, but I'm not seeing the completely broken side of you know what they used to do. But then again, it might be the levels that we're playing at. I mean, we're ranked 40-ish. We're casual players, so like probably not facing a lot of people that are running that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, if we get a little higher up, we can just touch on the other buffs regarding this. So Colleen Wing, first of all, I don't know who Hellcow is, and I do not at all know who Colleen Wing is as far as Marvel lore goes. Do you know who these people are?
I don't know Hellcow, but Colleen Wing, she was in the Daredevil, or not Daredevil. I mean, she was part of that the Netflix series. I think she got introduced in was it Iron Fist? It was
Okay,
one of those Netflix series she was a part of. But I still don't know anything about her
gotcha.
other than she's
Okay,
like, like a ninja type person. So
word. Well, props to Marvel Snap for making us play with the IP that we don't, the fringe IP, because that's good, because then that leaves more room for the super cool stuff. So Colleen went from a 3/5 to a 2/4 to just basically affect that curve of the deck because Hellcow went from a 2 to a 4 cost. And then let's go to Swordmaster, went from a 4/7 to a 3/6. The mechanic of discarding is still the same, just changing the cost and the power. That's it's cool that they're willing to look at a deck from a holistic standpoint and realize there's a lot of things wrong with what's going on here, and we need to tweak a lot of little knobs to see if we can get it right. I think that's great.
yeah, no, and I absolutely love the change to Swordmaster. He just felt actually just bad at his, what was it, 4/7 was his original.
Yeah, 4
So
cost,
it
it's
just
pretty crowded.
right there's so many good things you could be doing at the 4 drop, and 7 power just didn't seem enough. But now at 3 cost and 6 power, I honestly feel he can go in more than just a discard deck now.
Okay. Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I mean,
we're looking for power. I feel that power is important. It ends up kind of like Maximus being a 3/7. I feel like that card's pretty good, and this isn't that far off.
no, and honestly, when I first saw, because like I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of Cerebro stuff. I'm excited to try and get Swordmaster into a 6 power Cerebro deck.
Whoa.
Yeah, I still need a few other cards. Like Hellcow would be awesome for that kind of deck as well. But I don't have some of the really good 6 powers. Hood, who gives you the demon, that would be great. But yeah, no, that's what I like seeing about changes. I want to see cards be useful in more than just one deck.
Right. Yeah. Because that just because I to go back to our deck building conversations, I really feel like in this game, there's the meta decks that you can play, and you can play like shadows of them, depending on like or shades of them, depending on what you have in your collection. Or there is so much room for brewing, and like you're saying, if there's a card that can go in more than one deck, that's great. But also, it's good that they kind of pulled it back with Nakia, cards that go in every deck. That's a
Right.
little too
Yep.
far. So
Yeah,
let's
I
keep
hear you.
going here. Kingpin. I actually, speaking of Kingpin, who I actually just unlocked Magneto as well, but we can talk
Nice.
more about what I'm playing later. Kingpin has gone to, they changed his text. So he's a 3/4. When a card moves here on turn 6, destroy it. And they said, we believe that this update to Kingpin will make his functionality more clear and give players more flexibility on when to play him and capitalize on his payoff. Previously, it was the next turn, cards that move here are destroyed, right?
Right. And there was like some just weird interactions with end of turn and after turn type things. And I think that's where he kind of got a little confusing as to when he was actually going to trigger.
Right.
So this just makes it very clear. Turn 6, you're going to kill stuff if things move here.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's a pretty sweet card. I think the way to play it previously was to play it on turn 5 anyway. So this is just overall a good like kind of clarification. Uh,
Yeah.
is this
No,
a buffer
and
or nerf?
honestly, yeah, I think this is a card that will just wreck the movement deck because as we had talked before in our deck archetype episode where the movement deck is looking to fill the left and middle locations and the end with a Heimdall move. So if you drop a Kingpin there, everything that moves over is gone.
Yep, and then he just wins that location by himself.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like maybe uh the movement deck is like a top tier 2 deck, or a top tier pool 2 deck. And after that, once you start encountering pool 3 cards, I feel like it kind of just really falls off. And also maybe I just don't think that once you start understanding what the deck is, and once you start getting access to some of the better strategies, I think movement's just it's too high skill level for such little payoff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because honestly, I, anytime I go back to play the movement deck, I try to play it in a way that people aren't expecting, which banks more on Cloak and Doctor Strange type plays, which does kind of limit your options there towards the end of the game, I guess. I don't know. It's something I do want to tweak around with a little bit more. I don't feel like Heimdall is actually the answer anymore in that deck.
Right, because everyone knows that it's coming, so you've got to take it to the next level and do some counterintuitive stuff.
Right. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. I hope that maybe some of those cards get buffed. Although I mean it's just in a good spot. There's so much synergy. There are so many cards that like work with it. I just wish that there was something that kind of made it better. And this Kingpin buff definitely definitely makes it
Yeah.
worse.
Yep. So
Um,
what else we got there?
yeah, we
I
got
know there's some other
Lizard.
cards. Oh
Yeah, just a
yes.
couple. Yeah, went from a 2/4 to a 2/5. That's just great.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I'm still not super impressed with Lizard. I think he's got some, easy to play around uh card, but he's also like now you can like bait out maybe people to flood that lane. So yeah, at 2 power or at 2 energy, 5 power, I think it's a good card now.
yeah, I was playing my problem with Lizard though is like I was playing it in the ongoing deck, and it kind of just got to the same sort of conclusion that I'm playing a bunch of bad cards to try and get the spectrum ability to pop.
Yeah.
And this makes him better, but I thought that with having him be like a late 2 drop was the best way to play him, because you can really control where your opponents are playing for cards at. You could maybe play him and then drop Professor X on his location to make sure that nobody gets in there. But ultimately, this is good. I still don't think that Lizard is a good card because it's just an ongoing card that goes in a, unfortunately, I think the ongoing deck just like isn't that good. So like it's a synergistic piece that goes in kind of a bad deck that has a drawback, but I mean, I guess this makes it better. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Lizard?
I mean, like I said, I think he's okay. I did see a streamer, Jeff Hoogland, who actually played a Spectrum ongoing deck, I think, within the last week or so. And yeah, people don't respect Spectrum.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I still think it's, at least from what I watched, I haven't played it myself a whole lot. It looks like a decent enough deck.
I
But
feel like
like you said,
Spectrum's powerful, but yeah, it's just bad cards.
yeah, no, that's the thing. You're just playing, and in his deck, he even was playing Quinjet just for the ongoing, having a 1-drop 2-power ongoing card. So,
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
have Quinjet, so I hadn't played it in my. Maybe that's the tipping point. Maybe that's the card I was missing. Quinjet to get there. But for real, I mean that's because that's what it is. You're basically playing the same Nova Carnage, Nakia, whatever. Give your team +2 power strat, except you're playing cards like lamentably like Mr. Fantastic or Captain America. Or you know you're just not playing, you're playing armor, so then you're kind of you could be enabling opponent's stuff by limiting your options for destroying stuff. Or I mean, one thing I will say about the deck though with ongoing, that I said before, is that it gives you access to Cosmo, and Cosmo is just
mhm.
great.
Oh yeah.
But I wonder if maybe Lizard with Cosmo, like a 2-drop into a 3-drop, this might be a pretty nice combo. Something that I haven't really delved into much, but I've been thinking about, is really gaining control, like getting the initiative early so that your stuff reveals first. And then, because I feel like that's a whole nother segment of the game that I don't think is touched on as much, and I feel like might have been slept on because of a card like Nakia that incentivizes you to not play early in the game. So if you're playing Lizard on 2, you're going to have 5 power at one of the locations at the start of turn 3. Now, whether eventually they get the buff, rather they get the nerf, his ongoing thing that gives him the minus power if they have 4 cards at the location, that's whatever. But I wonder if Lizard into Cosmo is like a really great way to just steal games.
Yeah, I mean, that if you probably definitely want to do that on like an empty location. That could really, though, like I mentioned earlier, either set up for like a bait kind of thing where, hey, here's Lizard and here's Cosmo, so you can't really like play your on reveal type stuff. Do you want to flood this area now?
Oh yeah, if you put them at the same location, yeah, that's pretty good. Oh man,
So I
maybe the
think yeah,
ongoing deck isn't as bad as I think it is, but I feel like it's on the edge.
yeah. All right,
And then we
so
just have Rescue. Rescue's a
oh
4/4 instead of a 5/5. Do you have Rescue?
yeah, I do have Rescue. I have never played Rescue though.
Yeah.
So I'd really have nothing to say about her. I think this is probably a much better buff for her because playing her on 5, you telegraphed way too much what you're going to do on 6. It didn't matter what you were dropping; they knew it's got to go there. I mean, why else would you play Rescue then?
True. And flavor wise, I feel like they've imposed their own kind of flavor situations where like how Green Goblin and Hobgoblin are like the same kind of ability, kind of how like Ironheart and Iron Man are similar abilities where they buff other people in your team. and
Hmm.
Rescue, a similar type of thing. It's like it's getting buffed. But I wonder, like Rescue, I'm not a huge Pepper Potts like fan or anything, or I haven't really like watched or read anything about Rescue, but just hearing Rescue and from the situations that she's been involved, it's like she becomes Rescue when things are just really tilting out of control. And I feel like it should be kind of like a rescue-y type of thing, like sort of like an instant type of situation, or I don't know, some sort of reactive type of play. I just feel like maybe Rescue isn't really flavorly pulling off what she could be.
No, because to me, she feels like Jessica Jones, which she
Yeah.
is. I mean, and Jessica Jones feels like a good kind of ability for Jessica Jones. For Rescue, though, like, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, and I had heard somebody mention like what they could have done was like if you had played a card here last turn, then when you play Rescue, she gets a buff.
That would be amazing, like a secret Hawkeye thing, that you don't know it's
Yeah,
coming.
right, right. And that could, I mean, that could really makes for some interesting plays. But so hopefully they'll look into something like that with a card at some point. But right now, yeah, she just doesn't feel great to me. I mean, because she goes up to 9 power if you do play something right.
Hmm.
So I kind of feel like Warpath is just better in that spot. I mean, granted, you are only limited to 2 locations if you're playing Warpath, but so I don't know, maybe they are
Or like
similar in
Namor.
power. Yeah, yeah. Like I just, especially like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not thrilled with Rescue.
Yeah, never have been. Every time I've seen her played, I'm like, oh, it's Rescue. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
that's
I think I
that's
still
fair.
have her at common. I haven't even like upgraded her.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I feel like maybe there's room for that to be done. I'll say it right now, and maybe I'll be able to remember this because I'm not going to write it down. But whenever this Armor Wars comes out, because I know that they didn't like announce the Armor Wars thing on, they didn't announce any War Machine stuff with the Marvel like at the MCU announcements. But whenever that Armor Wars movie comes out, or whenever War Machine comes back, that's when there's going to be like the season pass and you'll get War Machine, and who knows what he'll do, but maybe they'll
Right.
be able to try and tweak all the. I just hope that he's not the same as Iron Man and Ironheart. I would like to see a different type of ability, and not just have to be boxed in by, okay, these are the Iron Man suit cards and they all do the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think for War Machine, it would be awesome if we had, an ability similar to Hazbent, but only affecting your opponent.
Okay.
Kind of like
Oh yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
sure,
him
sure.
coming in with his like machine guns and whatnot, and all of his weapons. Just like I don't know,
He might
but
be a good destroy card. That there aren't a whole lot of destroy stuff, so I could see him coming in and just blasting the field, or just doing it the way that you said. If he doesn't kill them, he withers them, like reduces their power permanently. That would be cool.
yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
that's all the that's all the balance changes. I think it's good. It's nice to see that they're willing to do them whenever. There's no like specific schedule, and I've been digging it.
yeah. No, I can't say I'm like thinking this is the best patch or whatever or best changes to cards, but it's definitely some cards that needed changes. It's still I think a good patch. Good job by the team.
Yeah, I've got a lot of faith in them, and that's also the beauty of these kind of mobile games, man. You can always change the environment, always tweak things, turn little knobs just to make the game better. Something that in Magic: The Gathering, when you're printing real cards, you can't do that. And
Yeah.
there's I actually like that, but also I've grown to really love that aspect of the digital card game, and yeah, I think just more good stuff from the developers here.
Right. No, I agree with you. So before we move into the locations, the main thing that we wanted to talk about in this episode, how have you been doing with the season so far? And I know you say you're free to play, but have you changed your mind on that? Do you want to buy the season pass to get the wonderful Daredevil?
Oh yeah, let's talk about Daredevil. I don't think that card's good. That card's not good. What does it do? Daredevil might be good. Uh, and so I don't know. So I feel like my deck is super sweet right now. Obviously, I'm level 40, so whatever. Although we know it is true that your level, your rank is directly related to the amount of time you're able to spend playing the game. Um, Mr. Negative. This deck is dope. It only gets shut down by Sandman, and if you're playing like, don't even play Sandman. You're messing up, okay? Mr. Negative is amazing, and in order to play it right, you have to be snapping smart, because there's certain times when you just won't draw Mr. Negative and you won't draw Psylocke. Yeah, so everything changed when I unlocked Psylocke. So she's a 2-drop 1 power at next turn plus 1 power. So that enables next turn plus 1 energy. So that enables a turn 3 Mr. Negative, which inverts the power and cost of all the cards in your deck. So you're playing cards that aren't bad on their own. Unlike the ongoing deck, these cards are all pretty good by themselves. So there's Devil Dinosaur. You're playing also Ronan the Accuser, because other people are playing Devil Dinosaur and Collector, and people are going to have big hands. So you're playing both of those. You're playing Iron Man, which is actually low-key, maybe not low-key, just one of the best cards in the game, and available to players of all levels, right? Iron Man's like one of the first cards you get.
Yeah, I think he's in the is he in the starter deck? I think so.
I think
No,
so.
no. You definitely get him very, very early if he's not in the starter.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Just in case we're wrong there. But I think it is in the start. And dude, it is just because when you turn it it's good by itself as a 5-cost 0 power, doubling the power at the location, that's great. But as a 0-cost 5 power with that same ability, it's disgusting. And then if anything else happens where you're playing locations that copy cards or add copies to your hand, so you're playing Devil Dinosaur, a 0-cost Devil Dinosaur on turn 4, a 0-cost 4 power Devil Dinosaur on turn 4, and then you're drawing one into your hand. So what is that location? We'll get to it. We'll get to
Yeah,
it.
yep.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there it is. Cloning Vats. When you play a card here, add a copy to your hand. So that Cloning Vats is cool with low cost stuff, but with high cost stuff, it's really hard to play. With 0-cost stuff, it's super easy to play. So so that's why I'm not sold on Daredevil, because when I'm playing, I'm winning the left location. I've got 80 power on the left location, I got 60 power in the middle location, and I got 30 power on the right location. So the only time I've seen Daredevil be good, someone played Professor X. I think that's a sweet combo.
Honestly, ever since I started playing Daredevil, like knowing what your opponent does on turn 5 is so powerful. Even if you don't have things like Professor X and Hobgoblin to kind of take advantage of their high risk plays, now you get to know exactly where to play those. Um, but just having that information has definitely led me to either go, yep, I'm snapping here, or it's time to retreat. A lot of the times, that's how my turn fives go with Daredevil anymore. Is I know if I'm going to win or if I'm going to lose as soon as my opponent plays their turn 5.
Okay, so if you're snapping smart, then that can be a real benefit. Then I could imagine.
Yeah, and I've also had numerous people like they play out their hand and I snap and they're like they retreat before I can even play out my hand because they're like, okay, you saw what I could do. You clearly have the right stuff. So um, it makes it a little harder, I guess, now to like gain those cubes from snapping. Um, but I've also been able to bait people in where I didn't have the greatest play or I only had one play on turn 5, didn't matter what they were going to do, and I snapped anyways just to see if they were like wanted to stick around. And again, just that bluffing aspect of the game I think is really fun.
Yeah, and that seems like probably one of the more bluffing enabling cards that's been released, because anyone who has been playing the game for any amount of time, when you snap, when you've got Daredevil down, they should know that you probably have a way to beat them. And if not, they're taking a risk that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and one of my favorite cards to actually play after a Daredevil on turn 5 is Doc Ock, because a lot of the times players will either play like one card out, or they'll fill a whole location so that you can't like lock it down or send a hobgoblin over.
Yeah,
But if they're sitting with more than 4 cards in hand, I usually will play a Doc Ock to a location I'm planning on losing anyways. And that alone, as soon as Doc gets revealed, I've had people retreat on me immediately.
because you're going to lose anyway, so you take the rest of their turn six.
I take all their cards out of hand, or they're left with 1 or 2 cards, so their options aren't the greatest, or they were trying to set up for a big, turn 6 play, and I just took it away from them.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can see that. And I feel like maybe from what you're saying, definitely Daredevil, you're going to want to have access to some higher pool cards to try and take advantage of your opponents. Like having Daredevil and Kingpin, that might work pretty well together to see what your opponent's doing, even though we mentioned that you don't need to have any information to know what the movement deck's doing. But
Right, but that still can help you knowing, just information in general is just great.
I think you sold me on it, because I came into this conversation today thinking I don't like Daredevil. I don't think it's good. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why it's power. It's potentially a powerful card. I just playing against him in my deck, at least, it seemed just kind of fruitless because I'm
Oh, I've
I'm playing
I've
so
definitely
so
had
many
some.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've definitely had some games where, like I said, I just based off the cards that I have drawn, I have either nothing to play on turn 5, which is very, very weird, or it's just a, not a great play, or I'm very limited on what I can. It's happened before, but I think that's more deck composition than anything else, and not like Daredevil not being good. Because he's still good in that scenario. It's just the other cards weren't what you wanted, right? So
Yeah, well, and also being a 2-drop, I think is really good, because I don't think there are a lot of just amazing 2-drops. So to see something that has a pretty good ability like that is nice. I would like to see more powerful cards at 2.
yeah, and honestly, he is the biggest reason why I think I could run the Cerebro at 2 power right now. If it wasn't for Daredevil, I don't know if that deck actually could, like, if I could win as many games as I have with it.
Right, and you're saying so you're getting a benefit from his ability, but also just him being a 2 power on top of that. That's just that sweet little extra cherry on the top to fill out your twos, is what you're saying with Cerebro, right?
Yeah, yeah, because in
Yeah,
that deck in that game, there's many times that like I see what they're doing, and I could either throw down a storm to change a location. I'm running a hobgoblin. Um, I'm running a lot of cheap stuff so that I could just end up flooding one area. Maybe they haven't. I see what they're playing, and they keep one lane open, so I just flood that lane with a bunch of cards, and then they're not. Nobody is expecting Cerebral Mystique in that deck.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
when
cool.
you have a bunch of 2 powers on the board, they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna win," and then all of a sudden, granted, you're only giving them +4 power, but having a bunch of 6 powers on the board now makes a big difference.
Right. It's kind of like a better Patriot deck, or is it the
Yeah,
same?
yeah, yep. No, I agree with you there.
Okay.
But
Okay.
at least my cards do stuff.
So I think now is a really good time to get to locations, because certain locations can really make you want to concede when you're playing a deck that requires all your cards to maintain the same power. So, like, you're not playing a Koye in your deck because that would mess up the whole deck.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. All right. So, why don't we start with locations? And I've got an alphabetical list here. There, before we go into this, there was one that's not listed on this, and that's a brand new one that did you see it in where did you see this?
It was the promotional video that Ben Brode had done for the new season. He was
Okay.
talking about heroes for hire, um, and just promoting the new season and Daredevil and stuff. And I did see Luke's Bar was a location that got brought up. All it was text on the screen. They didn't show like the actual location, like look or whatever. But it did say that anytime you play a card here, return it to your hand.
Maybe the Nakia nerf is preempting that location.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that definitely I think is going to be a very, very interesting location to play. Um, because there's a ton of stuff I would love to just throw down in a location and be able to bounce it right back to my hand. And um, I think Beast and Falcon are gonna be really good when that location comes out too. They're already a fun deck to play, so
Yeah, getting benefits from a lot of the on reveal effects, and then returning cards to your hand. And also, I've noticed playing against those kind of decks, um, they can bait your opponent. They can bait you into overplaying to a location, thinking that your opponent won't be able to add more power there, and then boop, they pull everybody back, and now they've got a clean location, and you've got a full location, and you've got 9 power, and you know that they're just going to be able to take it from you. So that's interesting, and it's kind of like a location that would destroy, or kind of like a danger room or a death's domain, which we'll get to, where it's at least that effect, but might have some sort of ability to abuse it. Like for me, with my Mr. Negative deck, if I had a 0 cost 3 power Ironheart, I'd play it at that location, give everybody +2 power, return it to my hand, play it again next turn, because you are still limited by the energy that you have. So, like the cloning vats, this ability becomes harder to abuse the higher cost the cards get.
right, right. But to be able to like we talked about, the on reveal stuff, like throwing down, if you can cheat out like a Doctor Doom, super early, getting, Doom bots and then being able to do it again. I know there's other ways of, being able to do that similar, but now with, this kind of location, I just think that it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see what people come up with.
And locations really are they're the spice of the game. They're the little RNG that doesn't feel that bad like RNG normally does, that makes the game interesting and makes every game actually take brain power to play. So that's great. So how about we do this? We're going to go through the locations. I'm going to read them. I'll say my opinion on the location, then you'll say your opinion. Some we might go back and forth and talk about for a minute. Some we might just go over and not come back to them.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, so Asgard. At the end of turn 4, whoever is winning here draws 2 cards. So I think that's good. I like having access to that in my Mr. Negative deck, because if I can draw more cards, then I can make more plays because all my cards cost 0. My thought is sometimes you can get baited into playing there. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely I think a location that's worth fighting over. But yes, you do have to be, I think, aware of putting too much down, because after you get the effect, it becomes a blank location then after turn 4.
Mm-hmm.
So what I absolutely love doing though, just because I've been playing these kind of cards a lot, but to play out like a Storm or a Scarlet Witch on that location, especially if they have already put down a couple cards and they're like, yeah, I'm going to get some cards out of this. I'm like, yeah, let's just change it.
Yeah, that is huge. Changing that location, so that's something we might come back to and think about with a lot of locations, is how bad is it for you if you've overcommitted and then the location changes? So that's
Yeah.
definitely something to think about. Atlantis, if you have only 1 card here, it has +5 power, like it says in the banner when it's the featured location. It's a good place for Namor. That's about it.
That's really it. Throw down your biggest card, and you get +5 power. So not
Yeah,
much to
or
really.
Professor Exit and just hope that they
Yep.
don't play something in time. Um, Avengers Compound. On turn 5, all cards must be played here. So that card sorry, that location I feel like is cool. It's something to keep in mind, though, is that it can kind of lock you out of the game if you're dealing with another location, such as Bifrost that we're getting to, or the Bifrost after turn 4, move all cards one location to the right. I've had situations where I haven't been able to play to Avengers Compound because Bifrost moved me or other things have happened. Sterling, let me hear what you got to say about Avengers Compound making you play cards on turn 5, and feel free to touch on Bifrost too.
Yeah, no, that's it definitely is a location you have to be aware of and think about the moment you see it, the moment it comes out, because yes, your turn 5 now is basically determined. So if again you can't like change the location with one of your cards, you have to play there. And yeah, I've been locked out numerous times by Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. And then you just don't get a turn 5.
Yep, you don't get to do anything like, and that hurts. That's basically a time to retreat though. So
Right, right. Okay, yeah, no, that I hadn't thought about that. That is good because there's other cards that can make it so that you can't even, or like your opponent fills up your location with debris and with Hobgoblin and Green Goblin, and then you only have one slot to play something on turn 5, and maybe that's not really what you want to do. So
right,
yeah, that's like you said, it's something that when it gets revealed, you need to keep your eye on it and know
yeah,
that it's there.
have a plan
Um,
for it, know what you're gonna do.
that said, Bifrost, we're only skipping one. We'll backtrack after this. Bifrost, while you do need to be aware of it and its interactions with other locations, I feel like it's not as bad and annoying as I thought it was when it was revealed.
Yeah, it's interesting to try and play around too. Because I know this was before the Kingpin nerf that he was played a lot when Bifrost was a featured
Oh,
location.
yeah, that's devastating.
So now though, I do like how that change to Kingpin doesn't
Oh
give
yeah,
you
it
an
doesn't
auto
affect it
win.
anymore. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, good point.
so that's nice. It's a good location to reveal for the movement deck because I think as we talked before, movement is always going to the left with most of their cards. This actually pulls things to the right, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it makes you think a little bit more about the game, but I don't think it's not something to concede over or worry too much about, but definitely keep in mind the interaction with other stuff, such as Avengers Compound. Um, we skipped over Baxter Building, and that is whoever's winning this location gets +3 power at the others. That's, again, just something that you need to keep in mind when you're playing. It's easy to forget about these things and be like, oh my God, I actually lost. Oh, yeah, my opponent
Yeah,
won
yep,
the Baxter Building.
right. And that's where yeah, I feel Baxter Building is one of those locations that is worth fighting over. But again, don't overcommit. But it's not horrible to overcommit, I guess, to Baxter Building because you're getting that benefit on your other locations.
True, true. So in that way, it is kind of. I feel like when we revisit this, we'll do another location video or podcast in the future, and I think when we revisit it, I might want to set some criteria for the locations, so when you see them, you know whether it's something that you need to like worry about or not. Like the next one, Central Park, add a squirrel to each location. That's just making the game more difficult for everyone. It doesn't really change anything, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it clogs up, a spot in everybody's board, three spots in each lane, and unless you are playing something like Kazar or the Destruction deck, Killmonger, it, it is, yeah, it just clogs things up. It's not great, but you can't do anything about it. It's one of those locations. It comes out, it does its thing, it's done, and you just have to play around it now.
Yeah, and it might give a slight benefit to some decks, but not something that even really matters. It might even be a hindrance because it fills up a slot at each location, which, when you're trying to, pop things off with Venom, sometimes you like to eat 3 things at once. He's hungry, man.
Yeah,
Uh, Cloning Vats. We mentioned Cloning Vats earlier. When you play a card here, add a copy to your hand. And as I mentioned, this kind of has diminishing returns as the cards you play get more expensive.
Right. And I've seen a few games and I have done a few games myself where you're just like, oh, this card is gonna be bonkers and I'm just gonna flood this cloning vats with it. And then by the end of the game, like it's not, I don't know, it just didn't work out or whatever.
Yeah, you're just unable to
So
play the cards because you just don't have the energy to play it. I feel like the best benefit I've gotten from it is when I'm playing Devil Dinosaur, and the only thing I'm getting is replacing the card in my hand, so Devil Dinosaur stays big.
yeah. No, my favorite one that I've gotten so far was my Deadpool deck, and I had Forge in hand, so I was able to play out Forge, and then I just spammed Deadpool onto there and played Killmonger and killed like four Deadpools, and now I'm able to play the Deadpools back out. So that
Yes,
one did get pretty
so
busted.
right, and right, depending on what you have in your deck, you might be able to take advantage of it. That's something where the movement deck really would get a benefit from because they play Hulkbuster, and when Hulkbuster merges with a card, it merges before it gets returned to your hand, or rather, a copy gets added to your hand. So
Right.
you play it. So you play something first, then you play the Hulkbuster on it. Like say you play Multiple Man, and then you play Hulkbuster on it. Then you're returning a Multiple Man that has 7 power. So, or
Yes.
you're
Yep.
creating a Multiple Man that has 7 power. So that can be good, but yeah, diminishing returns.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
Crimson Cosmos, 1, 2, and 3 cards can't be played here. Pretty much just like a basic location, just the basic flavor of Marvel Snap here, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I've definitely had times where it's like, okay, I can't play to this location because my entire deck is 3 cost or less. And then there's been other times where I'm playing a deck that I'm like, yeah, I think I have one cost in here, and that's it. So, it's a hit or miss kind of location depending on the deck that you're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Um, just something that you've got to play around, just the normal terrain of Marvel Snap. It's cool. Daily Bugle. I don't even know if I've ever seen that. It says get a copy of a card in your opponent's hand. I'm reading off a list that isn't like
Oh,
official.
yeah, I don't think that one has been introduced in the game yet. I
Yeah,
don't
so
recall ever seeing it.
I don't know what that is. So that may or may not be an actual thing. Obviously, Daily Bugle will be a location, I'm assuming, and that sounds right. But get a copy of a card in your opponent's hand doesn't really sound like the right wording. So maybe it's like from a document or from like the Discord that we haven't read yet or something like that. But that sounds cool. It's just like we'll get to another one where you just get a random card to your hand. Just an interesting thing, but could
Yep.
give you some information. But I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's official, so we don't need to spend too much time on it.
Okay. Yep.
Um, Danger Room. Cards played here have a 25% chance to be destroyed. Classic RNG Marvel Snap location.
Yep. No, I honestly, I take the chance every time with that location because I figure if it survives, awesome. Now I have to. My opponent is pretty much forced to try it as well and hope that the RNG is on their side too. Um, I don't play it like my big 6 power or 6 cost type cards. My big win cards don't get played there though because I don't want to take that chance.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because then you just auto lose.
Yep. But I love like throwing down an armor or something like that. Because I've seen people try to abuse the RNG with cards like Bucky and things that want to be destroyed,
And then they don't die.
and then they don't die, and I'm like, yeah. Now you have to
For
spend your
sure.
Carnage to actually kill him, and guess what? Your Carnage does get hit.
Yes, yes, very nice. Yeah, so Danger Room, it's just, a classic basic location. Dark Dimension, cards played here are not revealed until the game ends. I feel like you were talking about the Invisible Woman and the discard deck. This is just kind of like a free roll for that deck, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you just get to throw down all of your discard stuff in that location and not worry about your Hella getting discarded. So, and now you don't need Invisible Woman.
Yeah. It's like you have another copy of Invisible Woman, so if you don't draw it, you're good, or if you do draw it, you can play a different 2 drop. So yeah, that's that. Some decks will be able to exploit it other better than other ones.
Right.
Death's Domain. When you play a card here, destroy it. So I was alluding to that when we were talking about the new location and how you want to play cards that will give you effects like something like Ironheart that has 0 power on her own. So you play it, get her effect, she dies. Or you want to play stuff like Jubilee or things that, or like Doctor Strange. What any other cool interactions that you've had with Death's
Um,
Domain?
Again, back to Deadpool. I mean,
Yeah, okay, yeah,
I
just killing them
usually
every turn.
if I see him, even like I don't like killing Deadpool at 1 power, but if Death's Domain is the first location, I will definitely drop my Deadpool there. And I'll probably snap as well because every turn I'm dropping a Deadpool there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty oppressive. And hey, it's called Death's Domain, so any Death Destroy deck is going to get they're going to have stuff to be able to interact with it. I was playing Sabretooth, so I would play it on 3, and then I would just keep playing it every turn to Death's Domain just to increase my destroy count for Death. So
For Death,
there's a
yep.
lot, yeah, there's a lot you can do with that. But a base level for if you're trying to play with it, well, what you'll realize is you want to play stuff that gets cards there. So like Jubilee, she'll die, but whatever she pulls will live.
Yeah.
Same thing with Doctor
Or
Strange.
or cards, that can move into their Nightcrawler, Captain Marvel, can steal
Yes.
that location at the end of the game. Things that put out tokens, like Doom, can put a 5 power Doom bot there and it won't get destroyed. So
Here's a question. Do you concede when District X is revealed and both decks are replaced with 10 random cards?
absolutely not. That is the one that it's just like for me, it's like Ego and Agatha. If you pull you get an Ego who plays the game for you, or Agatha who plays the game for you, it becomes more of like definitely RNG. But I'm like, let's see, can you play with just some random cards and can you find the correct play order? A lot of people will definitely complain that like, oh, maybe you got better cards out of the random cards that you got, and
Maybe.
maybe, but I still feel like you can you can still steer the game in a way that gives you success.
And depending on what's in your hand when it's revealed, could also you still might have your game plan intact. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I feel like it's a real skill tester. It shows it'll show who has the best knowledge of Marvel Snap. All things being equal, now it can, like you're saying, it can happen that you just get garbage cards out of
Yeah, I mean,
District X, and it is what it is.
yeah, I could have gotten, some of the most powerful cards, but if they were all like 6 drops and I'm not able to play anything early game, it doesn't matter. You got a bunch of like early stuff. Yeah, it can feel bad sometimes, but uh I don't take those kind of games too, serious. They're more for fun. And that's why I like to snap on those kind of locations.
That's a good
Probably
point.
not
Like,
smart,
don't
but
Yeah, but at least you're not like tripping whether you win or lose because it's actually kind of it's sort of out of your control, but also not really. But you can't really feel bad either way. So I feel that it's kind of like it's like a feel good moment. It's like, okay, I get to play some, and it's also fun at the start when you're starting because you get to see a lot of new cards.
yeah, exactly.
So that is District X, X, not Xed like it was previously an X. Dream Dimension. On turn 5, cards cost 1 more. Just something to keep in mind. It depends on your deck composition if it matters or not.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Yep. Elysium. Cards cost 1 less. This is something I think you need to know. Is your deck or your opponent's deck better when everything costs 1 less? Because you might think your deck is super sweet when everything costs less, but your opponent's deck might be even better.
Right, but just because everything costs 1 less doesn't necessarily mean you have to play everything out if you can. I've seen that happen before where, it gets revealed turn 1 and they play like a 2 drop, and then on turn 3 they just flood the board with their hand, and I'm like, you have just now given me all the information I need.
Right, right. And you got to think, okay, do I have to use this energy now? Or with everything costing less, is this something that I can exploit later, hold these cards in my hand, and then take advantage of the information that I get from, like you said, my opponent just dropping everything and overcommitting. Now, here's another question. Here's another thing. This location you can get messed up if you get Scarlet Witched or Rhinoed or Stormed or whatever, and you were planning on holding on to stuff. You can just lose straight up if you don't take advantage of it, and your opponent does, and then they change the location.
Right. Yep.
So just stuff to keep in mind. It's definitely fun. It makes the game it makes powerful stuff happen. So it's good, but I definitely don't have tunnel vision.
Yeah, no, in any kind of card game, I'm always looking for like fun combos, and I want to see my combos happen. So like when that comes out, it's a feel good because you're like, yes, I could probably play 2 6 drops in this game. So
hell yeah,
it's just fun.
No doubt. Grand Central, at the end of turn 5, put a card from each player's hand here. I feel like my primary mode of interaction with this location is I fill it up so I control what happens, or I have so much cool stuff in my hand that it doesn't matter, and I leave it open and just make sure that it's not something that totally screws my game plan. Because if you're playing the wrong deck and something gets played somewhere turn 5, it could, like, I'm sure your Deadpool deck, that might have some stuff that you don't want to just be thrown willy-nilly all over the board.
Right, and like you said, it's you kind of have to think of how you can control it now. So do you fill out all spots so that nothing can get played there, or do you kind of craft your hand in a way that you don't care what gets drawn from it, it's still going to be good.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just something that you gotta remember. You gotta remember it's there though, because also if you can only benefit from it, if you make it so that if you fill up that location and don't get the benefit from the free play, you could just lose the game from that. But by your opponent having the opportunity to play another card and you don't.
Right. Yeah. So again, knowing your deck and knowing the deck that your opponent is probably playing, it's just like any card game. You just got to be aware of what could potentially happen.
Very important. Hala. At the end of turn 4, destroy all cards controlled by the player losing here. So I feel like easy mode for this location is don't play anything there until after turn 4.
Right. But now you're kind of like giving up that location, which, because, on turn 5 and 6, what are you going to play there really? Unless you do have a plan for that. It is a fun location though to like, to see who's actually going to win, and I've had numerous games too where like I don't play anything, and then on turn 4 I'll play like 3 or 4 cards there, and thinking that if they play something there too, I'm gonna win, and it does happen. It does happen sometimes. So
it is one of the more interactive skill testing locations in the game. There are times when you need to know, okay, I can't play here, or okay, it's good to play here, because if you make that mistake and you drop 3 things and your opponent also drops 3 things, you've just lost the game. So it definitely it takes a lot of knowledge to play around it. That's why if you're listening to this and you're new, easy mode, just skip it. I feel like a lot of the opponents I play against just don't play anything there until after it pops.
Or play stuff there that isn't going to, either they want to get destroyed like Bucky, or cards that it's not going to lose you the game if they do get destroyed. So you can throw down like, depending on what you're playing, like early game, you could throw like an Iceman down, so that you're also disrupting them. And if it gets destroyed, oh well, because it probably isn't super important for you to keep that 2 power on the board. Depending on your deck, though.
Yeah. So it's definitely a fun location, and it takes there's a low barrier to entry, but I feel like there's a high level of experience and skill. There's a high cap on like what you can get out of it. So definitely one to keep your eye on. Hellfire Club, 1-cost cards can't be played here. Just a standard, normal Marvel Snap location.
Yeah, no big deal about that one. Anymore, I haven't seen, unless they're playing, Khazar, or they're still early into the pool 1 and 2, not a lot of people are playing as many 1 drops anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. If it hurts your deck, it hurts it. But even then, you can still put Kazar to that location. You still might have a couple cards that you can play there anyway. It's just something you got to play around. That's something though that when other cards get revealed, or rather when other locations get revealed that maybe you can't play to, then the negative effects on your deck might really start adding up,
Right.
and you might want
You
to
got
think about
this.
conceding.
Yeah, yeah. If you have Crimson and Hellfire out, yeah, that could be really bad for a deck.
Yes. And then Hell's Kitchen, draw 1 cost card from your deck. Yeah, sure. It's cool. It's cool for anyone who's playing 1 drops. And other than that,
Yeah.
it's just whatever.
So now, yeah, with this location being in the system now, I think it is important. Like I just mentioned, not too many people are running many 1 drops anymore, but you still want to run at least 1 drop in most of your decks because of this location. That way you can filter it out and have now you're playing, anything that filters your deck is going to be great. So,
I hadn't thought about that. That's definitely a good consideration. I like that. Because
yeah.
even if you're not even playing, it can be like it's like you're playing 2 America Chavez. Because even in my ongoing deck, or not my ongoing deck, my Mr. Negative deck, I play America Chavez, even though when I draw it, it's going to be a 9 cost 6 power card. I'm just using it to make the deck smaller. So
Right. Yep. Yep.
that's it's like another way to get that same kind of effect. That's good. Um, all right, Isle of Silence. Ongoing effects are disabled here. Just you gotta know that that it exists. It's something that can be super punishing if you have a Devil Dinosaur and Scarlet Witch happens to change the location to that. That's another reason why I feel like I've had situations where I'm playing Scarlet Witch on a location and I'm screwing my own team. So I've been bummed. I've had that feel bad, but yeah, just ongoing effects are disabled. Just something to keep in mind. Not a big
Yep.
deal.
Yep. Yeah, I think they have versions of that location for all the effects. There's a on reveal isn't done here. And then we
Yeah.
also, so yeah, it's just great that they do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, just a basic location. Jotunheim, after each turn, cards here lose 1 power. I thought that was going to be a big deal, but it's basically just wait till turn 5 to play there and you're fine.
yeah, and honestly, I've seen it kind of confused me the first time I saw somebody do it, but like on turn 1 that got revealed, and then they played something there. I think it was a squirrel girl, and I was like, that's odd. And then they played something else there again, and then they played something. Oh, I know what it was. They ended up playing Killmonger and killed a ton of stuff, and it ended up being a wave or a death deck. So if you got ways of destroying your stuff and getting it out of Jotunheim, you can still actually kind of confuse your opponent with what you're doing.
That's a good point. That's something to keep in mind. Kunlun, when a card moves here, give it +2 power. That's something that, like, if it's on the table and there's other ways to move, I'll just jump ahead here to Strange Academy at the end of turn 5. Move all cards here to other random locations. So Kunlun, if you're playing the movement deck, then it's just like a sweet bonus. If Strange Academy is on the battlefield as well, that's great for you if you're the movement deck because it's going to give you a free move. But also, if you're just playing and you see Strange Academy and you see Kunlun, might as well throw something on Strange Academy to see if you can get the move there just to get that little random bonus.
Yeah, and for any player that's new to the game too, they're going to be playing Nightcrawler a lot. So Nightcrawler becomes very decent there. I wouldn't say he's great or anything, but also the key with that is don't move him right away because the players will know you want to get there eventually. So just wait until you absolutely need to move him there. Because I've had early on when we were playing, when this first came out, where I would move Nightcrawler there right away when I saw that, and they played an Electra because they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna move him there, right?" So
So here's the question. You know how we do on Snap Academy. we like to get long-winded. There's a lot of stuff that we like to talk about, and we like to cover things to the fullest extent. We aren't even halfway through the location list.
Yeah.
We're about a third of the way through it. I wonder if it wouldn't be a bad idea to call it here and do a location episode part 2.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention something like that because I got my time's ticking on here, uh, and I don't want us getting cut off or anything. So
Yeah, I don't want to
it
fast forward through these because I feel like it seems like there's a few things that we're fast forwarding through, but man, there's so much to talk about with these locations, and I really want to give it my full attention. So, how about we do locations video number 2 or locations podcast number 2 after this?
yeah, I am definitely down for that. So
All right. Well, let's call it there then. This is, dude, this is an episode that I've been waiting to get to, and I'm glad that we waited for me to recover to do this today because this episode is so important. And you know what? Hey, it's Tuesday right now, so maybe another episode of Snap Academy might be coming out really soon, right? I think that it'll be
yeah,
coming
I
out
think
sooner than later.
yeah, yep. We will definitely have to discuss our schedules and whatnot, but I think we'll definitely get on that, and we'll probably have another episode coming up.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun, Sterling. I always love chopping it up with you. I've been kind of mentally drained, so I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play since since my initial uh, issue. I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play, but I'm going to be stoked to get into it and see if I can get back at least to level 50 before we get into episode 2 of the locations discussion. So, man, this has just been awesome, dude. I want to say thanks to the listeners. I want to say thanks to anybody who's subscribing and liking and sharing our stuff. It means a lot. And Sterling, what do you got to say to everybody?
No, I just want to say, same as you, I appreciate everybody that's listening. Any kind of feedback, constructive criticism, anything you want to hear us talk about, please let us know. We love to hear feedback. We love to, engage. Both of us are very active on the Facebook group. Not quite as active in some of the other like Discord and Twitter and stuff, but you can definitely contact us on there and let us know, what do you guys want us talking about here in the future?
Yeah. Make sure to drop us a comment or hit us up online, and we want to continue this conversation and grow it and build the community.
Yes. So again, thanks AJ for being a co-host here. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate you guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Peace.